Hi, welcome to a new series of videos that I'm going to do on MGB maintenance. Those who are familiar with the channel will know that I've got a 1967 MGB GT, and being in our coronavirus lockdown, it's kind of an ideal time really to tinker with the car, get it running as smoothly as it can do. So to start then, what we're going to talk about in this particular video is pretty much just an intro to maintenance, like how do you know what to do and when, and then crack on with a weekly inspection, what you're supposed to do every week. So one of the things that is super useful is actually something like this, which is a genuine driver's handbook of an MGB. And I'm not sure if they came with every car. This one isn't the right one for my car. This is a later one, as it's issued by British Leyland. It says it on the back there. But because MGs didn't really change mechanically too much over the span of production, any of these is going to be fine. And looking through the handbook, actually, it's pretty clear that drivers in sort of the 60s and 70s were expected to do a lot more than you might do for modern vehicles. So modern vehicles, apart from, checking your oil every now and again, topping up your washer fluid and taking it to a dealership every year, and also tyre pressures, I suppose. But there isn't that much more that you're kind of expected to do as an owner of a car. But looking in this book, it seems that based on the fact this is a driver's handbook, it's a lot more sort of involved. And I think as a driver / owner of a car like this, you're also expected to be its chief mechanic as well. So yeah, in this book it says all about how to do certain things, description of any normal sort of owner's manual, I guess, what all the switches do, etc., etc. But the section that we're interested in is a bit towards the back, called routine maintenance summary. And what I'll do is I'll flash up a picture of this particular table and information on the screen now, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So essentially what it is a summary of what you're supposed to do and when. So for this particular video, we're just going to concentrate on the weekly inspection. So it says at the top here, every week before a long journey, you do this, that, and the other. And then it gets into the main sort of maintenance section of the book, and it sort of says in these columns A, B, and C, which are 6,000 miles or 6 months, 12,000 miles or a year, or there's kind of an interim check in C, column C, which is a sort of subset of those. So over the coming weeks, I'll go through each of these sort of maintenance intervals and what we're expected to do, and do the more intense sort of stuff in there. But for this week, we'll just concentrate on the weekly inspection. So according to this, the first thing on the list is to check / top up engine oil. So let's go and do that now. It's worth noting, actually, before we sort of get properly started on this, is since filming my last video, which was kind of my what to do in a lockdown type of video, sort of talking about what to do when you're staying at home. Unfortunately, my dad was actually taken to hospital with COVID-19, and was sort of put on breathing equipment and that kind of thing. And it really sort of hit home sort of how serious this illness can be. So if anyone's in any doubt as to how serious this illness can be, then I can sort of attest that it is pretty serious and life-threatening. So let's do what we can to try and stop the spread of it at such a quick rate by staying at home. And also, as well as wishing my dad sort of a speedy recovery, wanted to say massive thank you to the NHS for looking after him during this time. So they're doing great work, putting their lives at risk to help us. So yeah, thanks from me. Right, so checking the oil, first thing to do is actually open the bonnet up, and the bonnet catch is on the passenger side, just under the dash, just here. So we'll go and see what we can see. Okay, so we've got the engine bay open now, and we can see the engine. So apologies if you can hear a helicopter overhead. Seems to be the only bit of air traffic that I've seen for the last few days, but Anyway, this is the engine, and this is the main oil filler cap here. But to check the oil, as many of you will know, you actually have to use this thing called a dipstick. And actually we'll reveal one of the MGB's weaknesses for this particular process. So this is the dipstick, and if I get my hands down here, you can actually see that, get this out of the way, the oil filler or dipstick neck has come off of the engine block. It's completely just sheared off of the block there. It's probably like a bad bit of metal over time has kind of corroded away or worn away or something. And this, you don't want to lose this, because obviously if you take this away, the dipstick might go in further than it's supposed to and give you a false reading. So on the dipstick you can hopefully see a min and max mark there, and ideally you'd run the engine for a while and get the car up to temperature, then let it sit for 5 minutes or a couple of minutes just so that the oil will go back down again. But because this has been standing a while, there's going to be more oil in the sump than there'd normally be. So we just pop it back in the hole. There you go, make sure it's all the way down. Put it out again. And you can see there that it is actually slightly over the maximum. Now, if this was warmed up and the oil had got to the top of the valve train and that kind of thing, then we'd see that actually that's dead on max and not too much in there. But sitting there for a while, it's going to have drained down into the pan more than what would normally be there. So that's job number one. Now, if I did have to put some oil in, then just unscrew this cap and pop it in there. And what you'll see sometimes, if the car has been standing, is a tiny bit of that white sludge that people sometimes talk about for head gasket failure. Now, if your head gasket is about to go, then this will be caked in that sort of stuff. A small amount is okay, because that's normally related to condensation. So if the car's been standing, the heat within the engine itself and the heating and cooling will cause condensation to form, and that mixing with the oil is what causes that white emulsion. But this isn't anything to worry about, that's just because it's been standing for a bit. Normally if you do have that sort of condensation build up and that little bit of white sludge in the cap, then a spirited drive will normally get rid of that. If it doesn't go, then maybe it is head gasket. Okay, so the next thing to check, if I just move the camera over a bit, is the cooling system. So we're talking about specifically what's in this radiator. So I'm not sure, I can't remember whether the later cars have a separate fluid reservoir, but for these earlier ones, you've just got one filler, which is here, and you essentially put water in there until it can't come out anymore. And if you can see, hopefully you can, that the water here is right at just at the bottom of this filler neck. So that's kind of an appropriate level for it there, because it does expand as it gets a little bit hotter. And you can see that the drain is right on the edge here. So if it's any fuller than that, then driving around in the car will cause this to slosh around and come out. So you can't realistically fill it up any more than that. I just use water and antifreeze, just like a normal car. Some people use waterless coolants. I'm not really a fan of those. I mean, even though they don't corrode your inner parts of your engine, they do mean that the engine can sort of run hotter than it's supposed to. I mean, kind of the cooling system letting off steam is a good warning that your engine's too hot, whereas if something sort of doesn't boil over, you don't know if you're really making the engine running hotter than it should do. Plus, if you do get a leak, you know, old rubber hoses and that kind of thing is a pretty common thing on these cars, is that you won't have potentially the expensive waterless coolant to replace it with. So just having a bottle of water that you can throw in there in an emergency and fix your hose is much better than having to potentially call someone out or break down and be towed away because you haven't got any of your expensive waterless coolant with you. Okay, so the next check is to check your washer bottle. So my car being an earlier car, I have this Tudor plastic water bottle here, and this is where you put your washer. fluid. Later cars actually have like a plastic pouch that's sort of strapped to the side here, but they do the same job. They just hold your washer fluid for you. And actually my car is a manually operated wash that somebody's hooked up an electric pump to. So it didn't originally come with an electric pump. It's something that someone's done for convenience. I can see that I've not got much fluid in here, so I haven't got any washer fluid with me, but if I was going to fill it up, I'll just unscrew that, put it in, screw it back on again, and you can test your washers by pressing the appropriate switch inside. So we can go and check that out now, I guess. Okay, so sat back in the car. This big plunger here is my manual wash. So if I push this, you can see that water goes on my windscreen. But as I mentioned, somebody has fitted an electric option that makes that process a little bit more convenient. I mean, I quite like the manual push because it's the right thing to have in this particular car. But if you have to keep doing it, it's a bit annoying. So you can just hold down that button instead, and that's a bit more of a convenient solution there. Totally non-standard, but yeah, seems to work. Right, so this next one is checking your battery electrolyte. This is not as easy as it might sound actually. The batteries for the MG are located under this rear seat. I think in the Roadster it's like a rear shelf where you might have to remove a bit of carpet to get to it. But yeah, we'll get to the battery cover and have a look. So this is the battery cover. Mine didn't actually come with a battery cover when I bought the car, which is a bit of an odd thing to be missing, and actually quite dangerous because exhaust gases can kind of come up from here. But mine, I don't know if they're actually all black, but the one I bought was black and scratched. And it's been scratched since, but I covered it in that crackle black paint to try and protect it. So to remove this battery cover, you need to get a flat blade screwdriver and undo these quick release screws. I haven't actually got one to hand, which is a bit silly. I have tried using keys before, and they do work eventually, but they are a bit fiddly to try and do that. Oh, that key works a bit better. There we go. So if you're in a pinch, you can use a key to sort of turn these a half turn and get this off. But yeah, it's easier with a screwdriver. Ugh. And you can see a bit of corrosion under here with years of sort of battery gases coming out, wrecking the metal plate. So actually what you can, I'm not sure if you can see from there, but I've got a bit of crustiness around my, not around my terminals, but around my battery straps, and that's because I think I overfilled this last time. Let me just get the camera over here. Oh. So I think I overfilled this last time, and you can see where some of the battery acid has leaked out and started corroding my battery straps. But what we're actually looking for, and if you see here, you've got bent holes here from here. What we're looking for is inside these little bits, be careful you don't get any of this on your hand, is making sure that you can see the battery acid in there, and it's over the top of the plates inside. And now I can see that is over the top of the plates, so that should be fine. I mean, it probably could do with a little bit more distilled water. I think that's what you put in there. You don't put more battery acid in because that just makes the mixture stronger and stronger, because it's the water that evaporates from the acid, and you have to replace the water, not put more acid in, because that makes it more concentrated. But you want to make sure the plates inside are covered to the top, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, it doesn't look too bad. I'll check the other battery, and I think we're good to go. I mean, it's just one cavity inside with 3 sort of filling holes, so you can just you can see there that's at the same level, so I don't think there's anything to be
worried about there. Just double check this one. Yeah, that's fine. I'm sure it's in my head, but my fingers tingle now. Hope that's not battery acid burning them away. But yeah, I've got a tissue here that I can wipe them on. Anyway, on to the next thing. Okay, so last but not least are the road wheels. So the things to check on a weekly basis are the tyre pressures, just same as any other car. So I won't show you how to do that. So you can either use your own pump or go to a petrol station or something and use the recommended tyre pressure for your wheel. But actually to check the wheel fastenings themselves. So I've got knock-on wheels, and there's a spanner attachment for these particular type, but also if you have the ones with the winged hubs, you use a mallet to knock them off. I mean, you can use a mallet on the hammer to get these loose as well. But the key thing to know about the wire wheels is that you don't do it when the car's on the ground. You have to jack up each wheel and tighten and loosen them when they're jacked up. I don't know why that is, whether it's to prevent damage to the hub or to make sure that you don't over tighten it. I'm not sure, but yeah, you have to jack them up to tighten and undo them. For other cars which have the nuts, then the torque specifications are in the driver's handbook, so you just have to use a torque wrench with the appropriate attachment to put those on and off, and that's pretty much it. So that's the sort of first video of the maintenance series that I'm going to do. A bit of a quick one, but yeah, next time I'll be looking at probably the interim check, so the 3,000 mile service check, and hope to bring that to you very soon. See you later.